Spock, there's something on the wing, something. That's the extent of my really horrible William Shatner impersonation. I am off to go see Star Trek Beyond. Otherwise known as Star Trek 13 or Star Trek Part 3, if we're considering that this is the third film in the rebooted Star Trek cinematic universe. Advanced word of mouth has been really good for Beyond. It's been shockingly stellar. There's a lot of people that I know that didn't like the first two films that came out of Beyond really liking it. So I have got a lot of excitement going into this screening tonight, I gotta say. You know what, the trailer is, I hate to say it, they still haven't really done a lot for me. And am I wrong? Were there like dirt bikes in that first trailer? Space, the final rad frontier.
Well, that's just typical.
I mean, was that a Star Trek trailer or a rock video?
Let's hope this doesn't get messy.
This is where it begins, Captain. This is where the frontier pushes back.
Either way, catchy jingle. All right, gang, we just got out of Star Trek Beyond, otherwise known as the dirt bike adventures of Captain James T. Kirk. Am I right?
Yes.
Joining me once again is the man of 1,000 expressions, J.D. Roberts, my very good friend and also attorney at law. I'm always going to mention that when you're joining me. How many Key Rock quips do you have to deal with on a daily basis?
Only from you.
Only from me. Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer reference.
Yes.
One of the funniest Phil Hartman sketches of all time. How much better would this film have been if it was called Star Trek Beyond the Valley of the Dolls?
This time they've really gone beyond the Valley of the Dolls from 20th Century Fox.
A lot better.
I think it might have been a lot better. I think maybe let's preface this review by saying that in terms of my Star Trek fandom, I'm not an obsessive Star Trek diehard. I'm a big fan of the original series because I grew up watching the original adventures of Captain James T. Kirk. So going into the rebooted films, I think for me, one of the problems that I really had, I guess, with the first two J.J. Abrams films, in particular the first one, was that it really, let's be honest, it felt like the Star Warsification of the Star Trek cinematic universe. I think that what the main problem was that those films they forgot what made Star Trek inherently Star Trek. To me, when I was watching the original series episodes, it was really about like character dynamics and themes, and it was about exploring like topical issues but with a futuristic slant, and I thought that was sort of sorely missing in the Star Trek films. That and the original series were master classes in bravura acting from Mr. William Shatner.
Lungs filling there again, to see again, heart pumping, arteries surging, blood again.
And then, of course, we go into Star Trek Into Darkness. And, you know, I'm telling you, the final 20, 30 minutes of that film, because I think you saw it with me.
Yes.
And Jay, and the final 20 or 30 minutes of that film to me was really sort of artistically lazy in so many respects. All it did was just take the final act of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and just sort of retool it and throw it out there. And when Zachary Quinto Spock screamed, "Khan! I mean, I was ready to throw something at the screen. So that gives you some perspective on where I'm coming from with the Star Trek film. Like, where do you fall, JD, with these new films?
Well, I never really watched the show or The Next Generation.
So you're an expert.
Yeah, I like
Okay.
the movie with the whales. That one was pretty good.
Captain, there be whales here!
There be whales here!
But other than that, I don't have a huge background with Star Trek. I really like the first J.J. Abrams one.
Yeah,
Just
but
'cause
you
it was fun and it was Star Warsy, I guess.
Yeah, but you would agree though that the film, like the first two films, were very high on special effects and action and so forth, and maybe decidedly low on character and story and the finer nuances of storytelling.
Well, I think the first one mixed the action and the story very well.
Fair enough.
This one did not.
Yeah, but it
Well,
didn't. But JD, it didn't have whales in it.
No,
Okay.
There be whales here!
no.
Okay, so big minus in my book. Let's talk about Star Trek Beyond. So I'll pass the torch over to you real quick, and I'll let you. What did you think of Beyond in terms of carrying forward this rebooted series, and how does it compare to the first two?
My least favorite. It's kind of like nothing happens. It's all action.
Right.
It's the Quantum of Solace of the
Quantum of
Star Trek
Solace.
reboots.
That's why I have him here. The Quantum of Solace of reboots. I heard a lot through the grapevine that this Star Trek Beyond was proudly taking this rebooted series back to the roots of the original series and back to the sort of the iconic relationship, the trifecta, as you will, between like Kirk and McCoy and Spock. I never really got that vibe, to be honest, through much of this film.
Kirk and Spock even on screen together much.
Yeah, and see, that's the whole thing. Like now, in terms of what I think the film does well is I like the character moments between McCoy and Spock because that was really paramount. You know, with the original series, I mean, they had a very love-hate. They had a love-hate bromance, shall we say? And I thought that Karl Urban and Zachary Quinto worked off of one another really, really well.
Well, at least I won't die alone.
I'm still a little lukewarm to Zachary Quinto as Spock. I don't think he is as emotionally inviting as Spock as the way Leonard Nimoy was, even though that sounds really weird to say because he's playing an emotionless character. I think Karl Urban is really good as McCoy.
You joined to see if you could live up to him. You spent all this time trying to be your father, and now you're wondering just what it means to be you.
Is Chris Pine, does he seem more disinterested in this series the longer it progresses with his performance? Does he still have the same, because even though I didn't like the first two films, I gained the impression that he had a lot of exuberance and spunk in his performance. I think there's some kind of maybe a bit of a spark that's lacking here. Or maybe.
I was fine with him in this.
You were fine with him? Okay. Let's talk about Idris. Is it Idris or Idris? Idris Elba?
Idris?
He is a very authoritative and strong and empowered actor. And I think one of the disappointments with me with this film was, why would you get an actor, we were just talking about this before we shot this, why would you get an actor of his stature and just cake him with makeup throughout 90, I don't know if it's a spoiler to say this,
Spoilers!
throughout 99% of this movie. And I think you were at one point were saying, I didn't even know that it was Elba in this film until a certain point. So
I am counting on it.
as far as Star Trekian villains go, like where does this rank for you?
Not at the top.
Not
Right?
at the top.
I can't even remember who the villain was in the first one.
And
then
that's
the
another
second one
sign
was
of the.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
That's another sign of just how memorable that first film was. We can't even remember. It was
we do remember
the Romulan. Yes, the most popular Star Trek villain of all time. So, and then of course we had. That's another thing with Star Trek Into Darkness was the biggest non-spoiler in recent motion picture history being, Benedict Cumberbatch. Is he Khan or is he not Khan? And then J.J. Abrams committed one of the most unpardonable sins by trying to be coy about it and saying, oh no, Khan's not in this movie. It's like, fuck it, he was in this movie.
My name is Khan.
This is bullshit. I like Elba, but it's just, I thought his villain overall was lacking. I think his motivations didn't become clear until the final few minutes of the film, and by that point, I just really didn't care about him as a character. Yes, he was threatening and he was frightening, but as a well-developed baddie in this universe, I just didn't feel like it was there for me. And of course, you know, if you're comparing like iconic Star Trek villains, or like Ricardo Montalban's Khan, or even to a lesser degree Christopher Lloyd's Klingon in the third film, and Christopher Plummer in Star Trek 6, those films knew what to do with those actors. Don't completely cake them over with makeup. Let their visages show through and their performances come through. Quite frankly, they could have just got any actor, covered him in makeup, and got like Elba just to do like the voice of the character. I mean, I thought that was a bit of a disappointment for me.
Well, that's just typical.
Some of the special effects in the film, was it just me, or did they feel a little rushed? Like there was a couple shots in that film that looked insanely phony. I mean, there's that one shot, the one shot where Kirk on the dirt bike, the adventures of dirt biking Captain Kirk. They looked a little unpolished, and that introductory sequence it didn't look like a finished product to me. Am I wrong? Am I way off base on that?
I don't know. I didn't.
You were just so busy checking your watch. When is this damn movie over? I don't want to see Kirk on a dirt bike. I don't want to see Elba covered in makeup. What are your final thoughts about Star Trek Beyond?
Just, it's mostly forgettable. Just kind of wait for the next one.
Do you think it is? Now I don't take Rotten Tomato ratings with a huge amount of credence, because it's got like a 90+% Rotten Tomato rating. Like that means anything anymore. But like seriously, like is it? Do you think this is a movie that is worthy of all the pre-release praise that it's been getting? Because it's been getting a lot of good reviews. Like I don't think so.
No, it really does feel like Quantum of Solace. The short one that's all action, and it's the bridge between two other things. Yeah. So that's the next one is gonna maybe be a lot better. Even
numbered ones are better.
Yeah.
We can't say that about this series, because that second movie. Ooh. Also notice how they never once referenced the events of Into Darkness in any way, shape, or form. I guess good on them, but oh, and maybe spoiler warning here. Spoiler alert! William Shatner's Captain Kirk sort of makes a cameo. You can confirm that. He does. True. In all of his permed glory, you would say. Mm-hmm. Yes. Is that the worst rug in motion picture history? Captain Shatner's rug from Star Trek like 1 through 6.
No, I haven't researched this extensively, but I'm sure I could find a worse rug.
In closing, what I thought the movie was, it just... I just don't like the continuation of this newfound formula for this series. It seems really heavy on wow factor and eye-popping visual effects.
What the hell is this?
Some of which, like I said, felt a little unfinished for me. I think this is the least polished looking of the 3 films. I mean, you can love them or hate the first 2 Star Trek films from Abrams, but the guy is a consummate cinematic craftsman, and he knows how to make good-looking movies. I wasn't used to not seeing lens flares every fucking 30 seconds in this movie, so that was kind of refreshing. But yeah, it just really didn't sit well with me. Forgettable. I like some of the scenes of camaraderie between the characters, but ultimately, I like your analogy that this is like the Quantum of Solace of Star Trek films, because it just feels like an awkwardly assembled blip on what you think is a pretty decent Star Trek franchise so far. See, whereas me, it just seems like just a continuation of an established, reformatted brand that I don't really appreciate as an old school Star Trek fan. So
I've lost the Enterprise.
Anyway, there you have it. Thank you very much for tuning in for this. Thank you very much, J.D. Roberts, attorney, at law, for joining me on this review. If you can like this review, I would really appreciate it. Also, let me know in the comments what you think of Star Trek Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. No, just kidding.
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls from 20th Century Fox.
Let me know what your favorite film in this newfound Star Trek trilogy is. And also let me know what your favorite Star Trek film, period, is of all the Star Trek films in the cinematic franchise dating back to 1979's motion picture. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'll see you at the movies, everybody.
You have received your orders. You will obey my orders!
That is all. Carry on.